Look at your life for a moment, not your dreams, not your intentions. Your daily habits. Most people say, one day I will change. But tell me honestly, how many one days have already passed? Let me ask you something very simple. If nothing changes in the next 7 days, will your life change in the next 7 years? You don't need motivation. You don't need talent. And you definitely don't need another perfect Monday. You need one powerful week, 1 week of discipline, 1 week of clarity, 1 week where you stop negotiating with your excuses. Because when you win the first week, something dangerous happens. You start believing in yourself. Today, I'm not here to inspire you for 1 hour. I'm here to give you a 7-day system that can make you feel unstoppable, not someday, not slowly, but starting this week. Most people are waiting to feel inspired, waiting to feel ready, waiting for that sudden wave of motivation that will magically push them to change their life. But let me ask you something honestly, how long have you been waiting? Days, months, years? The truth is, motivation is one of the most misunderstood forces in life. We treat it like a requirement, when in reality, it is a reward. People say, I'll start when I feel motivated. But unstoppable people understand a deeper truth. Motivation follows action. It does not lead it. Think about a child learning to ride a bicycle. The child doesn't wake up one day full of motivation, jump on the cycle and ride perfectly. No, the child falls, gets scared, cries, but still gets back on. And after a few days, confidence appears, enjoyment appears, motivation appears. Action came first, feeling came later. Yet somewhere along the way, as adults, we reverse the order. We want to feel confident before we act. We want to feel excited before we begin. And because that feeling doesn't arrive, we stay exactly where we are. Motivation is like a guest that only visits homes where work is already happening. It does not knock on the door of laziness. It enters through movement. The moment you take even a small step, waking up early, opening that book, starting that workout, making that difficult call, something inside you shifts. Your mind says, oh, we are moving now. And slowly, energy begins to rise. But if you sit still, waiting for the perfect emotional state, your mind learns a dangerous habit, procrastination disguised as planning. Many people confuse lack of motivation with lack of ability. They say, I'm not motivated, so maybe this is not for me. That is a lie the mind tells to protect comfort. Your brain is designed to conserve energy, not to create greatness. So whenever you decide to change, your brain resists. It says, let's start tomorrow. It says, let's wait till things are easier. It says, you're tired today. And we listen, not because it is wise, but because it feels safe. Unstoppable people don't defeat their mind. They simply don't argue with it. They don't sit and debate whether they feel like doing something. They decide first, and feelings adjust later. They understand that discipline is not punishment, it is self-respect in action. When you act without motivation, you send a powerful signal to yourself, I am in charge, not my moods. And that identity shift is more powerful than any motivational speech. There is also a hidden cost to waiting for motivation that people don't talk about. Every time you delay action because you don't feel motivated, you weaken your self-trust. You make a promise to yourself and you break it again and again. And slowly, without realizing it, you stop believing in your own words. You say you will wake up early, but you don't. You say you will exercise, but you don't. You say you will focus, but you don't. And then you wonder why confidence is low. Confidence is not built by success alone. It is built by keeping small promises when no one is watching. When you act without motivation, something beautiful happens. You stop being a victim of emotions. You become a leader of your actions. Even on days when you feel low, you still show up. Even when the mind complains, the body moves. And after movement, the mind follows. Energy increases. Clarity improves. And suddenly, you feel motivated, not because you waited, but because you worked. Think about the days when you felt the best about yourself. Was it the days you rested and scrolled endlessly? Or was it the days you did something difficult, something meaningful, something uncomfortable? Satisfaction is not found in comfort. It is found in progress. And progress requires action, not inspiration. So if you truly want to become unstoppable in 1 week, stop asking yourself, do I feel motivated today? Ask a better question. What is the smallest action I can take right now, even if I don't feel like it? Do that one thing, then another and another. Within days, your mind will stop resisting. It will start supporting you, because the mind respects movement, not intentions. Remember this deeply: motivation is unreliable. Moods change, feelings come and go. But action is always available. And the moment you stop waiting to feel ready, you realize something powerful. You were ready all along. Most people underestimate the power of the first hour of the day. They think life is shaped by big decisions, dramatic moments, or rare opportunities. But in reality, life is shaped quietly, in the moments when no one is watching, especially in the morning. The way you begin your day is not just a routine, it is a declaration. It tells your mind who is in control, you or your habits. When you wake up and immediately reach for your phone, your day does not begin with intention. It begins with reaction. Before your feet touch the ground, your mind is already processing messages, news, comparisons, and noise. And without realizing it, you hand over control of your emotional state to the outside world. That single habit trains the brain to seek stimulation before purpose. Over time, this creates restlessness, lack of focus, and a constant feeling of being behind. The first hour of the morning is like the steering wheel of the day. Turn it slightly in the wrong direction, and by evening, you are far from where you intended to go. Turn it with awareness, and even a difficult day feels manageable. This is because the brain, in the early hours after waking, is highly impressionable. Whatever you feed it first becomes the lens through which the rest of the day is viewed. Unstoppable people do not wake up motivated every day, they wake up structured. They don't rely on willpower, they rely on systems. They understand that mornings are not for decision making. Decisions drain energy. So they reduce choice, wake up at the same time, follow the same simple rhythm, remove friction. In doing so, they preserve mental energy for things that truly matter later in the day. When you start your morning with something difficult but meaningful, movement, silence, reflection, or focused work, you send a message to your nervous system. I am capable. That feeling carries forward. Confidence is not built by words spoken in front of a mirror. It is built by action taken in silence. Even 10 minutes of intentional effort in the morning can change the emotional tone of the entire day. Many people say they are not morning persons. But this is not a personality trait. It is a habit pattern. The body adapts to whatever rhythm you give it. If you sleep late, wake up late, rush through the morning, and start the day in chaos, the mind associates mornings with stress. But if you consistently create a calm, purposeful beginning, the body starts cooperating, energy increases, resistance decreases. What once felt painful slowly becomes natural. Fixing your morning does not mean creating a complicated routine. In fact, complexity is the enemy of consistency. It means removing what weakens you and adding what strengthens you. Less scrolling, less rushing, more presence, more alignment. Even something as simple as sitting quietly for a few minutes, breathing deeply, or planning the day with intention can shift your internal state from reactive to proactive. There is also a deeper reason mornings matter so much. At night, you make promises to yourself. In the morning, you either honor them or betray them. Each morning is a vote for the person you are becoming. When you wake up and do what you said you would do, even if it's small, you build integrity with yourself. And self-integrity is the foundation of self-respect. People who feel stuck often say, "My days just slip away." But days don't slip away on their own, they are given away in the morning. Once the first hour is lost to distraction and delay, the rest of the day is spent trying to catch up. And by evening, exhaustion takes over, reinforcing the cycle. But when the first hour is protected, the rest of the day feels lighter, more spacious, more intentional. If you truly want to become unstoppable in 1 week, don't aim to change your entire life. Aim to win the morning. Wake up with purpose, not panic. Begin with action, not reaction. Give your best energy to yourself before the world makes its demands. Because when you respect your mornings, your days start respecting you. And slowly, without force or drama, you will notice something powerful. When your mornings are disciplined, your life becomes peaceful. When your mornings are intentional, your confidence grows. And when your mornings are strong, you no longer chase control, you live it. Most people don't avoid success because they are lazy. They avoid it because success is uncomfortable in the beginning. The mind naturally moves toward what feels easy, familiar, and safe. And because of that, we keep postponing the very actions that could change our lives. We reply to easy messages, scroll through familiar content, finish small tasks, and tell ourselves we are being productive. But deep down, we know the truth. The one thing that actually matters, the one thing that scares us a little, remains undone. Doing the hard thing first is not about being extreme or harsh with yourself. It is about being honest about what actually moves your life forward. Honest about the task that creates growth instead of comfort. When you avoid that task, it doesn't disappear, it stays in your mind like a weight. Even while doing other things, part of your mental energy is consumed by guilt, tension, and avoidance. That is why some days feel heavy even when you haven't done much. The hardest task of the day carries the greatest emotional charge. It could be a difficult conversation, focused deep work, a workout when you feel tired, or facing a fear you have been postponing. The mind magnifies its difficulty before you begin. It creates stories. This will take too long. I'm not in the right mood. I'll do it later when I'm fresh. But notice something important. The discomfort is mostly in anticipation. Once you begin, the resistance slowly dissolves. Unstoppable people understand this psychological truth. They don't wait for the day to feel easy. They attack the most important, uncomfortable task when their energy is highest. Usually that is earlier in the day, not because they enjoy suffering, but because they respect their future self. They know that if they delay the hard thing, it will drain them mentally all day. But if they face it early, the rest of the day feels lighter, freer, and more productive. There is also a powerful identity shift that happens when you do the hard thing first. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids discomfort. You start seeing yourself as someone who handles it. That identity matters because once your self-image changes, behavior follows naturally. You don't need external pressure. You don't need reminders. You act in alignment with who you believe you are. Think about how confidence is really built. It is not built by praise, comfort, or easy wins. It is built by proving to yourself repeatedly that you can do things you don't feel like doing. Every time you choose the hard thing over the easy thing, you strengthen your internal spine. You become mentally tougher, not aggressive, but grounded, calm, stable, capable. Avoiding the hard thing has the opposite effect. It trains the mind to escape discomfort. Over time, even small challenges start feeling overwhelming. The tolerance for struggle decreases. And life, which naturally contains difficulty, begins to feel unbearable. This is why people who avoid discomfort often feel anxious and stressed, not because life is harder for them, but because they have not trained themselves to face it. When you do the hard thing first, you also reclaim your time. Difficult tasks usually require focus, courage, and clarity. These qualities are strongest before the day scatters your attention. If you postpone them, you end up trying to do meaningful work with leftover energy. And then you conclude, I work better under pressure. But that pressure is self-created. It comes from delay, not from destiny. There is a quiet satisfaction that comes after completing something difficult early in the day. It is not loud excitement. It is a deep sense of self-respect. You walk differently. You speak differently. Even small problems feel manageable because you have already won an inner battle. That emotional win compounds throughout the day, influencing your choices, your patience, and your presence. To become unstoppable in 1 week, you don't need to overhaul your entire schedule. You need to identify the one task each day that you are most likely to avoid and do it first, before distractions, before excuses, before comfort, even if it is done imperfectly, even if it feels uncomfortable, especially if it feels uncomfortable, because the moment you stop running from difficulty, difficulty loses its power over you. And what once felt heavy becomes your source of strength. Most people don't fail because life is too hard. They fail because they stop trusting themselves. And self-trust is not destroyed by one big failure. It is destroyed slowly, quietly, through small promises that are made and then ignored. You tell yourself you will wake up early. You don't. You say you will exercise, you skip it. You say you will focus for 1 hour, you check your phone after 5 minutes. Each time this happens, something invisible breaks inside you. Not motivation, not discipline. Trust. The relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship of your life. And just like any relationship, it is built on promises. When you keep your word to yourself, you feel strong. When you break it repeatedly, you feel weak, even if you don't consciously realize why. This is why many people feel low confidence without any clear reason. Deep down, they know they cannot rely on themselves. Keeping one promise may sound small, even insignificant. But psychologically, it is powerful. It tells your mind, when I say something, I mean it. And once the mind accepts that, behavior changes automatically. You don't need force. You don't need pressure. You act because you respect your own word. The problem is not that people aim too low. The problem is that they promise too much and deliver too little. They make dramatic plans, waking up at 5 a.m., working out for an hour, reading daily, meditating, eating clean, all starting tomorrow. And tomorrow arrives with resistance. When the plan collapses, they blame themselves. But the real issue was never lack of ability. It was lack of honesty. Unstoppable people don't make grand promises. They make small, clear, realistic ones, and they keep them, even on bad days. Especially on bad days, because they understand something deeply important. Consistency builds character faster than intensity ever could. When you keep one small promise daily, you begin to repair your self-image. You stop seeing yourself as someone who quits. You start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. That shift changes how you speak, how you decide, how you handle pressure. You become calmer, more grounded, more stable, not because life got easier, but because you became reliable. There is also something very freeing about keeping just one promise. The mind stops feeling overwhelmed. You are no longer trying to change everything at once. You are simply showing up for one commitment. That simplicity removes mental noise, and when the mind is quiet, strength emerges naturally. Think about it. If you cannot trust yourself with small things, how will you trust yourself with big dreams? Big goals require endurance. Endurance requires self-belief. And self-belief is built one kept promise at a time, not through words, through action. Many people search for confidence in external validation, praise, recognition, approval. But confidence does not come from what others say about you. It comes from knowing that when you decide something internally, you will honor it. That is real power, silent power, the kind that does not need attention. There will be days when you don't feel like keeping your promise. Days when you are tired, distracted, emotional, or discouraged. Those days matter the most. Because when you keep your word on a hard day, the impact is multiplied. You prove to yourself that your discipline is not dependent on mood. And once that belief settles in, excuses lose their grip. If you want to become unstoppable in 1 week, don't overwhelm yourself with 10 promises. Choose one, just one. Make it clear. Make it small. Make it non-negotiable. And then keep it no matter what. Even if the effort is minimal, even if the result is imperfect, completion matters more than perfection. As the days pass, you will notice something subtle but powerful. Your posture changes. Your inner dialogue changes. You stop doubting yourself so much. You stop needing external motivation, because every kept promise whispers the same message inside you. I can trust myself. And when you trust yourself, you don't need to chase confidence. You don't need to fear failure. You don't need to wait for the right moment. You move forward quietly, steadily, with inner strength. That is how unstoppable people are built. Not in one dramatic breakthrough, but in one promise kept again and again. Most people believe their problem is lack of time, lack of energy, or lack of focus. But if you look closely, the real problem is overload. Too many notifications, too many opinions, too many options, too many distractions competing for your attention every single minute. The mind was never designed to handle this much noise. And when the mind is constantly pulled in different directions, even simple progress starts feeling exhausting. Distraction is not always loud. Sometimes it looks harmless. A quick scroll, a short video, a casual message. 5 minutes that quietly turns into 30. And when that happens repeatedly, something dangerous occurs. Your ability to concentrate weakens. You may still be busy, but you are no longer effective. You do many things, yet nothing deeply. And deep work is where growth lives. Unstoppable people understand that focus is not found by adding more discipline. It is found by removing temptation. They don't rely on willpower because willpower gets tired. Instead, they design their environment to support clarity. They make it easier to focus and harder to get distracted. This is why removing just one major distraction can feel like reclaiming a part of your life. Think about how often your attention is interrupted. Every interruption, even a small one, fragments your mind. It takes time to return to depth. And when interruptions become constant, the mind never fully settles. This creates a feeling of restlessness, anxiety, and mental fatigue. You may sit for hours, but real progress remains shallow. Removing one distraction ruthlessly does not mean cutting yourself off from the world. It means choosing what deserves access to your attention. Attention is your most valuable resource. Where it goes, your life follows. When you give it away carelessly, you feel empty. When you guard it intentionally, you feel powerful. For many people, the biggest distraction is the phone, not because the phone is evil, but because it is always available. It offers instant relief from boredom, discomfort, and effort. Whenever a task feels difficult, the phone becomes an escape. And slowly, the mind learns a dangerous pattern: avoid effort, seek stimulation. Over time, even small challenges start feeling unbearable. When you remove one distraction, especially the one you rely on most, there will be discomfort. Silence feels strange. Boredom appears. The urge to check, scroll, or escape becomes strong. But this discomfort is not a problem. It is a sign of recovery. It means your nervous system is recalibrating. It is learning how to be still again. In that stillness, something beautiful happens. Focus deepens. Thoughts become clearer. You begin to notice ideas that were always there but buried under noise. Creativity returns. Patience grows. You become present. And presence is the foundation of meaningful work and meaningful relationships. People often say, "I can multitask," but multitasking is not a skill, it is a form of self-deception. What we call multitasking is actually rapid task switching. And every switch drains energy. Unstoppable people do fewer things, but they do them fully. They protect long stretches of uninterrupted time because they know that 1 hour of deep focus is more powerful than 5 hours of scattered effort. Removing one distraction also builds self-respect. It sends a clear message to yourself: my goals matter more than my impulses. And that message strengthens your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone controlled by urges. You start seeing yourself as someone who chooses deliberately. This is why the word ruthlessly matters. Half measures don't work. If a distraction is optional, the mind will negotiate. It will say, just for 5 minutes. But 5 minutes becomes habit. So unstoppable people create clear boundaries. Certain times are distraction-free. Certain spaces are sacred. No negotiations. If you want to become unstoppable in 1 week, don't try to eliminate everything. That will overwhelm you. Identify the one distraction that steals the most time and attention. Remove it completely for 7 days. No compromise, no excuses. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Then it will feel unfamiliar. And finally, it will feel freeing. Because when noise leaves, clarity enters. When distraction disappears, direction appears. And when your mind is no longer scattered, your energy stops leaking. You become sharper, calmer, more intentional. In a world that profits from your distraction, choosing focus is an act of power. And the moment you take that power back, you realize something important: you were never weak. You were just distracted. Most people don't realize how much power they lose every single day through their own mouth and their own thoughts. Words may seem light, almost harmless, but they shape the inner world more deeply than we imagine. What you repeatedly say, out loud or silently, becomes the atmosphere of your mind. And you cannot grow in a toxic atmosphere, even if the toxicity comes from within. Complaining feels innocent. It even feels justified at times. Life is hard, people are unfair, circumstances are imperfect. But every complaint carries a hidden cost. The moment you complain, you shift into the position of a victim. You tell your mind, "I have no control here," and the mind believes you. Over time, this creates helplessness, frustration, and emotional weakness. Not because life defeated you, but because your language trained your mind to surrender. Unstoppable people are not silent because they have nothing to say. They are silent because they understand the value of their words. They speak with intention. They think with awareness. They know that every word either strengthens them or drains them. There is no neutral speech. Even casual self-talk matters more than we realize. The mind listens more closely to your own voice than to anyone else's. When you repeatedly tell yourself that you are tired, unlucky, stressed, or incapable, the mind accepts it as truth. And once it becomes a belief, behavior aligns with it automatically. You stop trying, you stop pushing. You lower expectations, not consciously, but subtly. Controlling your mouth does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It means choosing expression over reaction. It means pausing before speaking. It means asking yourself, will this make me stronger or weaker? Silence, when chosen wisely, is not weakness. It is discipline. And discipline creates inner stability. There is a reason why some people appear calm, even in chaos. It is not because their life is easier. It is because they have trained their inner dialogue. They don't allow every thought to become a sentence. They don't allow every emotion to become an outburst. They create space between stimulus and response, and in that space, power is born. Most conflicts, regrets, and broken relationships begin with uncontrolled speech. A moment of anger, a careless word, a thought spoken too quickly. Once words leave the mouth, they cannot be taken back. Unstoppable people understand this. They would rather swallow discomfort than speak regret. They choose long-term peace over short-term relief. Thought control works the same way. You cannot stop thoughts from arising, but you can choose which ones you entertain. Not every thought deserves your attention. Some are just noise. Some are fear. Some are habits of negativity formed over years. When you identify with every thought, you become mentally exhausted. But when you observe thoughts without reacting, you regain control. Silence gives clarity. When you stop reacting verbally, the mind settles. When the mind settles, awareness grows, and awareness allows better decisions. This is why silence is often uncomfortable at first. It removes distraction. It forces you to face your inner world. But on the other side of that discomfort is strength. When you reduce complaining, something interesting happens. You start seeing solutions. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I do now? That shift changes everything. Problems become challenges. Obstacles become teachers. And life stops feeling like an enemy. There is also a physical aspect to this. Negative speech and constant complaining keep the nervous system in a state of stress. The body remains tense. Breathing becomes shallow. Energy drains faster. When you speak calmly, think clearly, and reduce mental noise, the body relaxes. Energy increases. Focus improves. You don't just think better, you feel better. If you want to become unstoppable in 1 week, begin with awareness. Observe how often you complain, criticize, or speak negatively about yourself or others. Don't judge yourself, just notice. Then slowly, consciously, choose silence where you would normally complain. Choose constructive words where you would normally criticize. Choose observation where you would normally react. This is not about becoming quiet forever. It is about becoming deliberate, about realizing that your words are tools, not toys. Used wisely, they build confidence, peace, and strength. Used carelessly, they drain energy and create chaos. When you control your mouth and your thoughts, you stop leaking power. You become centered, grounded, stable. And from that stability, unstoppable action naturally emerges. Most people think confidence is a mental state. They believe that once they feel confident, they will start acting confidently. But the truth works in the opposite direction. Confidence is a physical experience before it is a mental one. It is created in the body first and only then reflected in the mind. This is why movement matters far more than we realize. When the body is still for long periods, the mind also becomes heavy. Thoughts slow down, motivation drops, and emotions feel dull. It's not because something is wrong with you, it's because the body was designed to move. Energy flows when the body moves. When it doesn't, energy stagnates, and stagnation feels like laziness, sadness, or lack of drive. You don't need intense workouts to change your mental state. You need consistent movement. Even a short walk, stretching, or light exercise sends a powerful signal to the brain. I am alive, capable, and in motion. That signal changes your chemistry. Blood flows better. Oxygen increases. Stress hormones reduce. Feel-good chemicals are released. Without effort, your emotional state lifts. Unstoppable people don't wait to feel energetic before they move. They move to create energy. They understand that energy is not something you find, it is something you generate. On days when motivation is low, they still move their body, not to punish themselves, but to wake themselves up. Movement also teaches discipline in a gentle way. You show up even when you don't feel like it. You keep going even when it's uncomfortable. And each time you do that, you strengthen your will. That strength transfers into other areas of life. Tasks that once felt difficult begin to feel manageable. Challenges feel less intimidating. The body trains the mind. There is a deep connection between posture and confidence. When you move regularly, your posture improves naturally. Shoulders relax, spine straightens, breathing deepens, and the mind responds to these physical cues. You start feeling more present, more alert, more capable. This is not imagination. The body and mind are constantly communicating. Many people try to think their way out of low moods. They analyze, reflect, and overthink. But sometimes, the fastest way out of the mind is through the body. A few minutes of movement can break a mental loop that hours of thinking cannot. Movement interrupts negativity. It grounds you in the present moment. Consistency is more important than intensity. One day of extreme exercise followed by a week of inactivity does little. But daily movement, even if simple, builds momentum. And momentum is powerful. Once it starts, it carries you forward naturally. You stop relying on willpower. Movement becomes part of who you are. There is also an emotional release that comes with physical activity. Stress, frustration, and anxiety are stored in the body. When you move, especially rhythmically, those emotions begin to release. You feel lighter, clearer, more balanced. This is why after moving, problems often seem smaller. Not because they disappeared, but because you regained inner strength. If you want to become unstoppable in 1 week, don't overcomplicate this. Move your body every day. No excuses, no waiting for the perfect time. Some days it may be intense, some days gentle. What matters is consistency. Even 5 minutes is enough to shift your state. When you honor your body, your mind follows. When your body is active, your mind becomes alert. When your body is strong, your thoughts become steady. And slowly, without force, confidence begins to rise, because confidence is not a feeling you wait for. It is a state you create, one movement at a time. Most people don't realize how much of their life is shaped by what they consume. Not just food, but information, conversations, content, and ideas. Every day, the mind is being fed constantly. And just like the body, the mind becomes a reflection of its diet. When you consume endlessly without creating, the mind becomes passive. When you create, the mind becomes powerful. We live in a world designed for consumption. Scroll, watch, listen, absorb. Endless streams of content are available at any moment, and the mind gets used to being entertained rather than engaged. At first, this feels relaxing, but over time, something subtle happens. Creativity weakens, original thought fades. You begin to doubt your own ideas, and without realizing it, you start living inside other people's thoughts instead of your own. Creating, on the other hand, is uncomfortable. It requires effort, focus, and courage. When you create, you expose your thinking. You face imperfection. You confront the fear of being judged or failing. This is why the mind resists creation and prefers consumption. Consumption feels safe. Creation feels risky. But growth lives on the other side of that risk. Unstoppable people are not those who consume the most information. They are those who apply, reflect, and express. They don't try to know everything. They choose carefully what they allow into their mind. And then they give something back to the world, even if it's small, writing a few lines, speaking an idea, building something simple, teaching what they've learned. Creation transforms knowledge into wisdom. When you consume too much, your mind becomes noisy, thoughts overlap, opinions clash, you feel confused and overwhelmed. But when you create, your mind organizes itself. Ideas become clear. You understand what you truly believe. Creation forces clarity. It turns chaos into structure. There is also a confidence shift that happens when you create. You stop seeing yourself as just a receiver of information. You start seeing yourself as a contributor. That identity change is powerful. You no longer feel small in front of the world. You feel engaged with it. You move from spectator to participant. Consuming less does not mean isolating yourself or avoiding learning. It means being intentional. Ask yourself, is this helping me grow or just helping me escape? Many people consume content not to learn, but to avoid discomfort, boredom, or responsibility. And while occasional rest is healthy, constant escape weakens the mind. When you reduce consumption, you may feel an urge to fill the empty space. That space is not a problem. It is an opportunity. It is the space where original thought is born. Silence allows ideas to surface. Stillness allows insight to emerge. But if every quiet moment is filled with content, those ideas never get a chance to breathe. Creating also builds discipline. You show up even when inspiration is missing. You practice expressing yourself even when it feels awkward. And each time you do, you strengthen your internal voice. You stop relying on external validation. You become less reactive to trends and opinions. You develop your own direction. Think about it: when you consume all day, by evening you feel mentally tired but strangely unfulfilled. But when you create, even if